This is the MyMichelleLive podcast.
Here's Michelle.
Sports time. Are you ready? Go, boys. Sports.
Sports.
It is time for sports. Oh, my goodness. Guys, welcome to our sports segment. Garrick Payne, Rich Hallstrom, Tom Fisher with us today. Some of our guys couldn't make it. In fact, one of our guys is on the injured list, testing positive for COVID, and that is Brent Baker. So we've had to eliminate him from, make him sit out for a little while because, that's what the thing is with sports. That's what you do. But we have
want him to breathe on us through the computer.
Through the magic of Zoom.
That's right. Rich Hallstrom is an author and independent sports reporter. Garrick Payne is a pastor. He is a chaplain. He is a coach. And then we have a defensive coach extraordinaire, Coach Fisher. I'm Michelle Mendoza, your host. And guys, let's first talk Seahawks in a back and forth game with surprising plot twists. The Seahawks take NFC first place in a 21-28 win over the Cardinals. And some of these plot twists, like Jalen Thompson's injury late in the first half, kind of resulted in a game stoppage and may have helped the Seahawks kind of get in control and score. Kyler Murray seemed to play through some sort of shoulder injury during the game. We were Facebook messaging, and one of you guys even messaged, it looks like DK Metcalf is actually human as he missed a touchdown catch. It was kind of, like I said, a back and forth, but we pulled it off. And Tom, I'm going to give you the floor first because you nailed the game on Facebook with defensive calls. Do we have what is needed to continue? And did the game impress you?
Yes, the game did impress me. I was I was watching the game and I was making the calls before, which was kind of like eerie. And it was like, and they were doing it, both offensively, defensively. And yeah, they just seemed to, the timing was right for everything. They played as a team, won as a team. So I'm pretty happy with the result.
Yeah, it was kind of nice to watch. Garrick, it was a little bit different, even with the back and forth and the, your heart racing and the nail biting. It was still pretty impressive.
Well, it's interesting to me because I think Russell Wilson kind of went more conservative. He was very careful about not making big mistakes as far as potential turnovers. I mean, it made a huge difference, the fact that we had an actual running back in there who understood the offense and also obviously got the job done as well. And I think that opened up the passing game. Coach Fisher pointed out that in order for us to be successful offensively, that Wilson needed to run the ball. And we saw that happen and we saw the success.
Yeah, it was fairly effective. Rich, what needs to happen to keep us atop the NFC West and lead us to another Super Bowl?
Well, you need some repeat performances like you saw yesterday. Carlos Dunlap coming up with several sacks. LJ Collier coming up with his first official NFL sack. Seahawks sack Murray 3 times. Control the ball with the running game. 165 yards running the ball. Carlos Hyde did exactly what they brought him in to do. Another great move by Schneider and Carroll to bolster the backfield. And Scarborough, from a former running back from Alabama, finally got into an actual NFL game and also added a few yards. So it was really the Seahawks going back to more of a 2012, 2013, 2014 style with Russell running the ball and Carlos Hyde running the ball. They controlled the tempo, and the defense made the right plays at the right time and was aggressive in making plays on the ball.
Yeah, didn't it feel like, I remember this team, right,
exactly.
Garrick?
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yep. It was our old Seahawks back again.
Woohoo! Woo! Something else that you had sent, Rich, speaking of the NFL, was that this Monday night, the first all-black NFL officiating crew is going to work the game with Rams versus Tampa. And I wanted to ask you guys if you thought this was historic and important. I mean, is it historic or is it important because blacks have been isolated from the NFL or from this position in particular? Because to me, it's more interesting that Sarah Thomas is an officiant. She's the only woman official in the NFL. Garrick, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's breaking new ground, and I think that's a good thing. And I don't know the history about all the refereeing, but certainly it has been predominantly a white male dominated field, and so to see the diversity coming in is good. It's interesting we don't hear about other ethnicities in terms of Asians or Hispanics, right. And so maybe there's just not the interest in pursuing that field by those particular ethnic groups. But certainly getting women involved in the officiating is I think something that,
I love it. It's glorious because it gives we may not be able to play on the field, but we love the game. So it is a way for women to be in the NFL. And I don't know either, maybe Coach Fisher or Rich Hallstrom does, of the statistics on Hispanics, Asians, and the like. I just have never looked in. But I do know that Rich Hallstrom is our sports encyclopedia. So let's go to him.
Well, what we know about this is a practical way of actually doing an outward example of diversity. Currently, 4 of the referee crew chiefs are African American, 4 out of 17 crews. And for historical context, Burl Toller was the first African American official in major pro sports, and that was back in 1965. So the NFL, I think, has been doing an excellent job to showcase what they're trying to do to make the game more popular and more accepting in many different ways all around the world. And that's going to bode well for the National Football League. And as you mentioned, Sarah Thomas, Michelle, that just shows that ability trumps anything else. And that's what we want to focus on, is ability and credibility of these individuals. So I think it's just another historic moment to focus on credibility and content of character and ability, like Martin Luther King said.
Yeah, good. There you go. Now, talking NFL, talking Seahawks, Monday we're going to face the Eagles. How do you think we're going to bode, Coach Fisher?
I think we're going to do pretty good. The NFC East is a pretty weak division, but we need to, come in like, it still is an NFC matchup, which, I mean, it looks like they're kind of a front runner in their division. So, we'll see how it is important down the road. So, every win in the NFC and or AFC is what we need. And we need to walk in there, like we are at first place.
Yeah, but you never take anything for granted. We just can't take anything for granted. And I wanted to take that into a little bit of a COVID report because it affects sports. A COVID update in sports is something that, well, I think it's something needed because it so affects us, right? I mean, think about it. Apparently, Pennsylvania, I don't know if you guys know this, has made a new ruling that sports teams and players throughout the entire state must wear masks at all times, even during play, Oh my goodness. I have a hard time walking through the store, or running to something with a mask on, or running through the airport with a mask on. Misery. I can't imagine during play. Steelers and Eagles claim exemption, but the word is that the governor said, nope, no exemptions. This is I guess it's not really our face off topic. It would be more our mask off topic.
Well, I heard a recent study indicate that, and I'm sorry I can't quote it, that there have been zero, absolutely zero transmissions of the coronavirus in player-to-player contact in any outdoor sport at all.
That is correct.
Okay, so when we look at no player-to-player contact, and that's according, as we were bringing it up, Dr. Alan Sills of the NFL, Chief Medical Officer. That's a huge point to make, that we have not seen that. So we have these crazy, people trying to do their best, but how does that affect play, Coach Fisher?
I'm not sure how that's going to affect play, but, if there's, I didn't know that statistics that, there hasn't been player to player. I mean, I figured, in between teams, but it just makes for a different perspective.
I can speak to that from the perspective of a player, because I actually I have started playing soccer again. I played outdoor last night, and the state has now mandated that we play with masks on. And so that was one of the conditions. And so I took a mask out and I played with a very thin mask, but it was a mask. So, it was one of those surgical type ones. So you could still breathe from the sides and things like that. It did inhibit my breathing, and it took some getting used to. It is doable, whether or not it's necessary or whether or not it actually changes anything, because with this spike in coronavirus cases, especially in the state of Washington, which is one of the states that has one of the highest percentage of mask wearers in the whole country, if there's still a spike and people are wearing masks, then what is that saying? And so
that we're testing more, and that maybe masks may not be as effective. Maybe they help. Maybe
sure
they help.
I would guess that they would help some, because
Possibly,
if anyone sneezes or something like that, it'll catch them.
There you go. Well, speaking of COVID and leading into college sports, Wazoo's first-string quarterback is out with a positive COVID test. And by the way, is it safe to say, Rich, that the Washington State Cougars effectively couged it Saturday, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory over the Oregon State Beavers?
Well, actually, that would be I think that would be an understatement. And
isn't it funny that
actually it was against
is an actual, we know what we're talking about when we say they couged it, right?
Well, actually it was against Oregon. Oregon's one of the best teams in the nation at either number 11 or number 12, depending on the rankings that you look at. So in terms of the opponent, it's not going to be that much of a black mark on your record in this shortened Pac-12 season. But I know that Nick Rolovich wants to get off to a better start as the Cougars head coach. They won their first contest against Oregon State, and Jaden DeLora was looking great. The former St. Louis High prospect from Hawaii, one of the best recruited quarterbacks in the nation, looked great as a freshman, and they wanted to get off to a good start this season. I think it's going to be a little bit hard on the Cougs on the road this week against Stanford. So,
yeah, I agree with you there.
Not a good thing.
They had a great first half, though, and Fish, it was kind of disappointing. But following that game, we watched the Washington Huskies pull off a defeat there, or a victory there, rather, 27-21. So that was like, oh, yay. That's how the weekend goes, Tom.
Yeah, I saw the highlights. I didn't have time to watch the game, but yeah, I was fairly impressed. Like I said, I think that they were going to play some good football, and they didn't do too bad.
Perfect example of continuity, Michelle. Jimmy
Yes.
Lake gets his first win as Husky head coach in his debut. Dylan Morris, the redshirt freshman quarterback, very poised in the pocket for the Huskies. And the Huskies also used the running game to win the game over Oregon State. So here we see Washington and the Seahawks this week using the running game to control the tempo and control the state of the game and come out ultimately with a win. You can't be a one-dimensional team in any version of American football and hope to win on a consistent basis. Don't you say that? Wouldn't you say that, Tom?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's got to be firing on all phases, and even if the run game doesn't work, like the flare passes, behind the line of scrimmage, the screen game, I noticed Seattle got back to that, that we saw in the first 4 or 5 games, how they utilize that when we weren't getting, 100-yard rushers, but there was another element to get them into the game. And then, with Russ running last night, that opened up passing lanes, that sucked people up because they had to respect that. And that opened up, the passing game.
Well, I wanted to give praise, if you're watching our video version of this, to Garrick Payne, master of backgrounds, of Zoom backgrounds there. And some interesting news, Garrick. Former Husky Jermaine Kearse is going to join the UW staff.
Wow.
There you go.
It's a great a PR move to have a popular Seattle sports figure like that. And I don't know too much about him personally. He seems like a great person.
But that's a good thing. You're right. A really good PR move and something to get excited about in these crazy times. As we continue, I have more to get excited about, our Seattle Sounders. We will continue this conversation with the boys from sports, our roundtable, Garrick Payne, Rich Hallstrom, Tom Fisher, and me. I'm Michelle Mendoza, your friend in the afternoon. Live from Seattle, 8:20 a.m. The Word is live from Seattle, and we are sportsing it up. In our sports conversation today, we have with us Garrick Payne. He is a coach. He is a great soccer player in his own right. He is the former chaplain for our Seattle Sounders, and he is a pastor. Rich Hallstrom is the official 12th man. He is a sportscaster and reporter from right here in the Great Northwest and the author of Thunder Sports Network. Coach Tom Fisher is my friend from high school. He has played football his whole career. He has a Hall of Fame ring to prove it, and he is a great defensive coach, and this is the team we are playing with today. These are the guys who are on the field, and I'd say it's our starting 4, but congratulations to the Seattle Sounders. 3 of our own have been named the MLS 2020 Best 11, Home Depot 2020 Best 11. Any guesses on who? If you haven't heard this news story, just shout out one name who you think it should be.
Jordan Morris.
Okay, there you go. Jordan Morris, definitely. Well, it's Nico Ladero, Jordan Morris, and Rui Diaz. So Raul Rui
I couldn't
Diaz.
shout out because I actually already knew that. So
Now, wait a minute, Michelle. I got to jump in here. No Stephen Fry in goal.
Well, Stephen Fry, in my opinion, is so overlooked. He's like the Russell Wilson of soccer. He gets where Russell Wilson has had a fight during his very successful career to get recognition. Steph Fry has not been asked to step up for the men's national team, and he really should have. And so, yeah, I don't know. And even Nico, who I think deserves this on one account, hasn't had the best year of his career at all. I would just say that Nico is kind of the engine that makes us go. Garrett, can you weigh in on this?
Well, I think in part, it's the sportscasters, it's the different media folks and MLS folks coaches, I believe, also weigh in on this. It's quite an honor to have 3 players out of just 11 for the entire league. Now, Philadelphia Union also had 3 players, one of whom was their goalkeeper. But we had a Portland player, we had a LAFC player, we also had, let's see. Anyway, but that's really impressive, though, to have 3 players and do that. And I think Stefan Frei definitely has earned a spot to be recognized in that way. But I think the Sounders are just happy having him do so well for the club.
Yeah, he keeps getting us wins. It's okay. The Seattle Sounders also have a new member, a very familiar face, a familiar sports legend. Now we are represented by football, with Russell Wilson being an owner. Ken Griffey Jr. and his wife Melissa became the latest members of the Sounders ownership. Well, if I remember right, the news story is, guys, help me if I'm wrong, MLS has cut salaries and cut staff 20%, I should say, staff by 20%, because everyone's feeling the pinch. Do you think with all of these owners, now we're up to 12 owners, I think, with all of these owners, some of them very well known, is that going to keep us in the black, Rich?
Well, here's what I think this does. It increases the brand of Major League Soccer, and it increases the brand in Major League Soccer in the way that this is another way to make better business deals in the future of the league. And once again, make soccer an important part of the American sports landscape. Because if you have Russell Wilson, Ken Griffey Jr., Macklemore from the entertainment industry, you are putting soccer in the forefront in a positive way from a business aspect. And you can play off all these individual brands to make Major League Soccer more of a major sports force in sports entertainment. So
do you think it'll get us a little bit more respect? Because it is very difficult when you're looking through, and we bring this up a lot, the pages of our local rag. We can do something spectacular, win the cup, whatever it may be, and we're still on, the third page, and some set in between what's going on with the Mariners and the Seahawks. So you think this will be one step closer to actually getting reported on?
Well, I do think that
Garrett's shaking his head no.
I do think that will happen if the Seattle Times tries to be as professional as they claim to be with their sports section.
Yeah, but a lot of what's writing out now is just regurgitated from the MLS page. It's not unique reporting. It's not reporting on individual players. I mean, Jada has a wonderfully unique position to be able to walk in, especially right now when it's difficult for people, to give us some inside looks into what's going on in the MLS. And we don't always get that with the Seattle Times. So very difficult. Guys, I also wanted us to weigh in on the Sounders taking on LAFC coming up this Tuesday in round 1 of the playoffs. Anyone excited? Yes.
I am definitely excited because
Seattle
Sounders.
LAFC is going to be without Rossi. So that's 1 point in the Sounders' favor due to COVID issues. I think that the Sounders have the experience, they have the team unity, and they have the experience in the sense that they've already beaten LA in the playoffs in the past. So they can go back to that formula and remember what that was like, because nobody is looking at the Sounders.
That was glorious last year.
I think LA's remembered it too. I don't know if it'll be that easy.
I think LA might be.
I still feel better than Bob.
LA might be the only people that remember it.
Do you think we need sports timeout T-shirts that say "Sports timeout"? I feel better than Bob.
Yeah.
Right? I think we need those. I think we need those.
I would go for that. I would definitely
Yeah,
go
me
for
too.
that.
That's it. I'm making it happen. I'm making it happen. The United States men's team beat Panama. That was pretty exciting. And we had a great game. I mean, a great game and a great showing in this friendly after a pretty disappointing loss to Wales. And I'm wondering, they actually played Garrick with an international team. So we didn't see the Jordan Morrises and the Christian Roldans on there. Do you think that made a difference, or what was it that made us pull off such an impressive win?
Well, I think it's really, national team play is one of the most difficult things because you're bringing together players who play on different clubs with different styles and different levels. And so I think, the players who have been more playing on the international stage, they are more accustomed to the diversity. And I mean, our players,
That's really good.
Like Roldan and Jordan Morris, these are outstanding players. So this is not at all in any way negative towards them.
No,
But
and they hold their own on the international stage. But you're right; that's something that may be difficult because European play, it's the big leagues. And so, Coach Fisher, you can speak to this in having to work with differing leagues. You may have really talented players, top notch, but if you put them into a bigger league, that's where we're talking maybe the XFL and then suddenly into the NFL. They may be able to hold their own, but there's got to be a little bit of a learning curve. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a learning curve. That some people are at a certain level for a reason, whether it's their work ethic or not. And you really have to sell that on your way up, which is through your individual self. If you're going to get on a team or expect, to earn money at different levels. And, with a lot of semi-pro players, I mean, there's been some that have gone pro, whether it been, Canada or the old XFL, and worked their way up and then been in the NFL.
And sometimes there is, or even when you see college players that come up into the NFL, sometimes they are out of the gate running. Sometimes, there's a little bit, something to get used to. Guys, it is time for us to take our final shot where we go around the round table and we give a final shout out. But of course, we need the theme music first. So let's get it. And let's get it, Michelle. There you go. All right. Final shot. We'll go with Rich Hallstrom.
All right. I'm going to talk to Jade McDaniels and Mr. Stewart from the Husky men's basketball team. They got drafted this week in the first round of the NBA draft. The NBA draft now only 2 rounds. So a first round draft choice is a pretty heady thing and a pretty important thing. Since 2005, the Huskies now have 13 players that have been drafted in the first round of the NBA draft. So the Husky basketball program keeps pumping the talent into the NBA. Congratulations to those 2 gentlemen for being picked in the first round of this year's NBA draft.
Groovy. Coach Fisher, final shot.
I'm going to say God is great. Let's get rid of this COVID.
Drop the mic. Let's go home.
Amen. Preach it, brother.
Get ready to get panged. Garrett Pang.
Well, we already talked about him a little bit, but I had been thinking that my final shot would go to the one, the only Ken Griffey Jr., who joined the Sounders ownership team. One of his quotes in the article that talked about him was that he says, "I don't play to be competitive. I play to win." And he said that's a part of why he wanted to join the Sounders team, because of that winning attitude and the way, the mentality they have. Now, the quote that I did not like from him is that he said that I want the Sounders to be compared to the New York Yankees. What? But he went on to clarify that, saying with 27 or 28 championships. Okay. So that was fair.
We can forgive him for that.
We can forgive him for that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
My final shot is going out. Well, today I mentioned Sarah Thompson. She is Thomas, the only woman official in the NFL. And, you know, I am one of the only women leading a sports talk show in a large market. Well, my final shot goes out to another woman in sports, and one in particular, Julie Ertz. She's a Chicago Red Stars player and an 8-year national team veteran on the national women's soccer team. She is a woman player that lives out her faith. The women's soccer world has a strong LGBTQ, even political leaning. They're not known for people who, you know, go on the sidelines and pray. And that's okay, because there are still people of faith there. She lives out her faith. She loves her teammates, regardless of their background, and she lives out her faith. Julie is part of a women's group of soccer players, interestingly enough, that joins with wives and girlfriends of players on the Philadelphia Eagles. Her husband actually is tight end Zach Ertz, who plays with the Eagles, and we'll be seeing him soon. This year, their theme in 2020 was endurance. And Julie has written on her wall endurance along with Hebrews 12:1, and I wanted to end with this. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance or endurance the race marked out for us. Guys, happy Blue Friday. Thanks for sportsing it up with us.
Happy Blue Friday, Michelle.
For more fun, go to MyMichelleLive.com.